Okay, we are live. Here we are, ready to go, toe to toe with the Titans of Evil. Ready to tackle ready to do the work to keep our naughty nuggets out of the jaded jackal of evil. We're going to talk about the Grimness Maul, the Ballad of Grimnir, which is an interesting thing because you literally have Odin giving out some information. I'm going to read this to you. There's some real pertinent ideas that go with this that are essential to our. Okay, we are live. Here we are, ready to go, toe to toe with the Titans of Evil. Son of a bitch! Quit talking to myself. Nietzsche and Jung had the idea that out of a primordial subconscious, science would emerge. Bachofen and Joseph Campbell had the similar idea that out of the deeper connection to the very vein of the soul, a primordial connection of a higher mythological or spiritual thought would emerge. There's a real interesting dichotomy because Nietzsche and Bachofen were contemporaries. Nietzsche would actually go and spend time with Bachofen. And if you haven't checked out his book on mortuary symbolism, it's very hard to find. Mortuary symbolism and Mother Right and the story of Tanimede, I think is what he, anyway, there's some for sale on Amazon. They're about $47. I highly recommend you do it. He is literally like a godfather of anthropology. But in those symbols that appear, and we are all aware of these symbols that appear, hell, even like that one there, there's symbols similar to that all around the mythologies around the world. And they appear irrespective of time or geographic location. Something is making a connection. Something is allowing a deeper spiritual thought to emerge. Perhaps math would be a nice connection of the two, of high mythological thought and spirituality and science. There are all kinds of ideas about numbers and that are fascinating to beyond belief. The number 72, the number of beats of a man's heart divisible by 9, the 9 months of gestation, 9 months of a year of spring and summer and fall before everything dies. There, 432,000, 4,320,000. There's all kinds of numbers that routinely appear that we can spend a lot of time trying to figure out. Suffice it to say that somewhere within that language itself, we might find a connection. And I think what we do when we're talking about the comparative ideas of a deeper meaning of spirituality emerging from various humans and a deeper ideas of science emerging from a deeper part of the individual's mindset and the connection of math with both of them, there's something we've got to consider with regard to that. And it all has to do with our mindset. Now, the secret to understanding that, and I say secret, that may be kind of a heavy term for this, I think we see somewhere along the lines in the Grimness Maul. Because here you have two brothers that take very different paths, much like the separation of church and state. You have the same kind of mindset that begins to appear in the Grimness Maul. What happens with these individuals when their mindset allows these deeper connections to help them understand higher truths to their existence, be it science or math or spirituality? How do we determine that? And I think when we look at the terms of folkish or universalist, instead of putting the cart before the horse, we need to have a clear understanding of how all of those emerged through everything, and then come back to the one that is most palatable to the culture in which we emerge from and say, this resonates with me in the most comforting ways that allows me to express the beauty of who I am in any number of ways, be it as a masculine, as a man, or as a woman. The differentiation in mindset is carried out something in this question and answer, this understanding of the patterns of life. And it is distinctly masculine and feminine, as it is an argument between Odin and Frigg. So I'll read it here and offer the commentary as usual. King Hrothgar had two sons. One was called Agnar and the other Geroth. I can't pronounce that, so you're just going to have to deal with a redneck pronunciation. Agnar was 10 winters old and Geroth 8. Once they both rowed in a boat with their fishing gear to catch little fish, and the wind drove them out into the sea. Now, that getting lost at sea is one of those common mythological ideas, because what does that represent? For one, it represents bounty, as we've discussed with Aegir's feast. The gods themselves would feast in the very bounties of the sea. But it also represents the unknown, the far distant shore we're not familiar with. It also represents being lost spiritually, as well as physically. It is a terrifying thing to die at sea, to float out there forever. So this is a truly terrifying idea for two little boys. But for boys to become men, it is always a traumatic, painful, cathartic event where the boys are separated from the mother and go through rites of passage that are painful, to say the least, to become men. And it takes many different forms in today's society, and none of them are as clear as they should be. None of them are as hard and fast, because after the boy leaves his mother and goes through this passage, this rite of manhood, he does not go back home and say, hey, mama, I did it. He's with the men now in a much different environment, in a whole new world. Hence the reason for the seriousness of the transition from boy to man. Women, like I've said many times, they don't have a choice. There comes a certain age when she is a woman, whether she likes it or not, and she must be walked through that lovingly with the females around her. Sadly, this may not be happening quite as well as it should be either. We see it with the Kardashians, where the value of who they are resides squarely between their legs. And it's a shame. Back to being drove out to sea. In the darkness of the night, so it gets wet, let's rub some salt into the fucking moon. Not only are you lost at sea, now it's fucking dark, there's monsters out. They were wrecked on the shore, and going up, they found a poor peasant. So now they've gone from great wealth and comfort to being lost at sea at night. So now they're going to be with a poor peasant, in whom they stayed the winter. The housewife took care of Agnar, and the peasant cared for Geroth. There's your differentiation between boy and man. And it says in the next line, and taught him wisdom. Okay. In the spring, the peasant gave him a boat, and when the couple led them to the shore, the peasant spoke secretly to Geroth. They had a fair wind and came to their father's landing place. Geroth was forward in the boat. He leaped up on land, but pushed the boat out and said, go thou now where evil may have thee. So, in the absence of the proper guidance of the initiation into masculinity, and in the absence of the separation of the boy from the feminine idea, we have treacherous thoughts that begin to emerge. They are not well-rounded. They are not grounded in the stability of the community in which they live. They are fucking wild cards. And that's kind of a reflection of what we have in today's society. We have boys that never really separate from their mothers. And we have other men that become completely ruthless and hard and are no longer committed to the stability of the society in which they grew up in. So we end up with these radical ideas. They manifest in today's world as the radical right and the radical left. Neither of them represent the balance that creates a society where freedom might be enjoyed. So the boat drifted out to sea. Geroth, however, went up to the house and was well received, but his father was dead, Then Geroth was made king and became a renowned man. Odin and Frigg sat in Lithskjalf and looked over all the worlds. Odin said, "Seest thou Agnar, thy fosterling, how he begets children with a giantess in the cave?" So what did Agnar settle for? Not completely separating from the feminine in his life, not having that delineation. He's with the giantess. He got an ugly woman. I mean, it's just like he got him a big old ugly woman that he's having kids with in a cave. No idea of being the masculine man, of the idea of the alpha, and all the other horse shit that kind of goes with this idea of the masculine man and the trophy wife. He settled. Now, an argument could be made that perhaps he found someone that he loved, which would be a good thing. And it would be a stable thing. But Odin looks at it and he says, "No, this ain't quite right. This is not the idea. This is not the actions of a man. He's out here fooling around with a giantess, having kids in a cave. What's wrong with building a house, dude? Build a fucking hut. Cut some peat up and burn some peat log. I mean, do something right." No, he's going to settle for me. So he became poor white trash. This is called like it is. Geroth, my fosterling, is a king. He went all the way to the top and now rules over his land. Frigg said, "He is so miserly that he tortures his guests if he thinks that too many of them come to him. So he's a little greedy. He has not learned how to be generous and hospitable as he would have done in the presence of a group of men committed to the stability of the society that all of the men are committed to. He becomes a greedy little prick." Odin replied that this was the greatest of lies. I can see him now. "Bullshit, you ain't talking about my boy that way." And Odin replied, and they made a wager about the matter. But Frigg sent her maidservant Fulla to Geroth. So there's two rules to live by. Nothing good happens after midnight, and women are powerful creatures. And if you can get that in your fucking thick head, you probably do okay. She bade the king beware lest a magician who has come thither to his land should bewitch him, and told this sign concerning him, that no dog was so fierce as to leap at him. That was a very great slander that King Geroth was not hospitable, because that's the rule of the land. That's the rule of who we are. To be generous and hospitable, to be confident, strong enough men in this world that we're not afraid we're going to lose something by offering something to someone else, that we're not going to be minimized because we helped someone out. Whether or not they're fucking worthy of it is irrelevant. We're confident, strong enough men that we have what it takes to be men in this world, that we have a little share. That's a real important thing that we sometimes seem to miss. But King Geroth knows this. Don't know if he's capable of it, because we're all trying to deceive ourselves as to how we live in this world. A little bit of a lie here, a little bit of a lie there. Honesty and courage are at the top of that list of 9 noble virtues, because unlike King Geroth, we don't have the luxury of being kings. We have to operate within the constraints of the families that we want to love, the people we wish to associate with. That requires hospitality and generosity. But nevertheless, he had them take the man whom the dogs would not attack. He wore a dark blue mantle and called himself Grimnir, but said no more about himself. Though he was questioned, the king had him tortured to make him speak and set him between 2 fires, and he sat there 8 nights. I don't know why jail wouldn't have been so good, but, fuck it. Let's put him between 2 fires and have some fun. King Geroth had a son 10 winters old and called Agnar after his father's brother. So his son's name is Agnar. So when you do something that shitty to someone, and we don't really have a way to go around and ask forgiveness, or you kind of got to deal with it. We got to make up for it with real action. We got to go in there and set something right. And it might be taking an ass whooping. It might be, giving till it hurts. It might be doing something but we don't go ask for forgiveness or I'm sorry, it'll be okay. That's just not how it works. King Geroth obviously has not done that. So it remains with him. He names his son Agnar. And sometimes when we don't get the chance, it's just human nature. When we don't get the chance to go do right, we make up for it. Think of the clearest example of this is always how grandparents dote upon their grandchildren, because they probably fucked up quite a bit with their kids. That's just life. You get a grandchild in the mix, whoo, I got a second chance. I'm going to fix this shit. That just kind of, that's human nature. And this is kind of what's going on here. So this child has known love. This child has known the affection of a mother and a father in a successful home. Agnar went to Grimnir and gave him a full horn to drink from. So this little boy is sitting there looking at this, and he knows this is wrong. And just put him in jail or something. You're going to set him between two fires. To torture him. It ain't right. Because a dog wouldn't bark at him? Come on now. Grimnir drank from the horn. The fire had become so near that the mantle burned on Grimnir's back. So he spake. And this is the part where he begins to demonstrate who he is. The fire is getting too close to him. He said, "Holler out there, fire, too fierce by far. Get ye now gone, you flames." So he commanded the flames. The mantle is burnt, though I bear it aloft, and the fire scorches the fur. So, that has all of these connotations of other powerful religious figures taking control of the elements around them to figure out the world they want to live in. This is the simplest kind of idea of it. Get away from me. I don't need that negative thought. Lopt, or fire, sometimes referred to as Loki, when the wood would pop and the green wood would pop in the fireplace, the women would always say that's Loki whipping his kids. So this is also Odin saying to the negative thought, the egotistical ideas that he represents, get away from me. You can take it that way if you want. You can do a lot of good in your own life if you wish to perceive it that way. Now, you don't have to, but I find more strength, I find more clear-headedness in approaching the idea from that perspective than many of the others I've come across. Twixt the fires now 8 nights have I sat. No man brought meat to me. All of y'all are a bunch of fuckers. That's not a good sign. Save Agnar alone, and alone shall rule Geralf's son over the Goths. Now, in this particular translation, Goths, that pretty much means the generalized tribes of Southern Europe. In the original lines 2 and 4 are both too long for the meter, and thus the true form of the stanza is doubtful. For line 4, both manuscripts have land of the Goths instead of simply the Goths. The word Goths apparently was applied indiscriminately to any South Germanic people, including the Burgundians, as well as the actual Goths, and thus there's no specific application. And so he's talking about just the people, okay? Hail to thee, Agnar, for hailed thou art by the voice of Veritir. For a single drink shalt thou never receive a greater gift as a reward. Now, what is that gift? Now, we're tempted to sit here and think that the gift would be the rulership over these peoples of Southern Germany, these Germanic tribes. And yet, he already has that. When his father passes, he will be king. So he already has that in his repertoire, if you will. So what is the gift he is giving him? The gift he's going to give him is his mythological knowledge. The land is holy that lies hard by the gods and the elves together, and Thor shall ever in Thrudheim dwell till the gods to destruction go. So he's beginning to lay out a map for him. Yedilir call they the place where Ul a hall for himself has set, and Alfheim, the gods to Frey once gave as a tooth gift in ancient times. A third home is there, with silver thatched by the hands of the gracious gods. Valaskjalf it is, in days of old, set by a god for himself. Now that Valaskjalf means shelf of the slain, Odin's home, in which his watchtower Hliskjalf. So there was one author, one scholar, Gehring, identifies this with Valhall as there is no mention in stanza 8. He believes stanza 6 to be an interpolation. So it's either another place besides Valhall and Vingolf, Valaskjalf, the shelf of the slain, or it is another name for one of the two locations. Set by a god for himself. Odin put that there for Ragnarok, to bring forth the Einherjar. So we have a map now. We have Thrudheim where Thor dwells. We have Uller and Ydilir, and we have Alfheim where Frey rules. And the third is the Hall of the Slain, where Odin rules over the Einarr. So from the warder of men to the hunter, Algiz, and the yew bow, and Alfheim, the god of light, a solar deity, Frey, a god of abundance, to a powerful idea of an afterlife on the shelf of the slain for the hall of the slain warrior. He's laid out a fairly, in those short stanzas, comprehensive perception of the world in which Agnar lives. This is the condensed mythological knowledge that Odin is sharing with him. This is a true gift. So if you're going to sit there and wonder if the ripples, if the thoughts that you have ripple throughout society as science or math or spirituality, you've got to know where you're starting from, don't you? You've got to understand where you are before you begin to create huge tidal waves of impressive nature like myself. Actually, that's because if there was somebody that screwed it up in the beginning, it has got to be me. So now let's continue on with what he's talking about. Sakva is the fourth, where cool waves flow. And amid their murmur it stands. There daily do Odin and Saga drink in gladness from cups of gold. This is your thought process. The high, powerful spirituality and deity of Odin himself, the great sky god, the god of the tempest and the fury and the battle frenzy, but also of artists and poets. To Saga herself, what these are named after, the stories of our ancestors. And when they come together and we drink in gladness from golden cups, it is reminiscent of after Ragnarok, where Balder returns with Hoth, and they reside in Hrok's battle hall, and all ills do grow better, and they remember days gone by. All of the gods that survived, it's the same thing. They're happy, aren't they? And it's kind of a reminder to us that in our thought process, should we not be powerfully positive and happy because here we are? Is that not enough? Have we not found things and people to love? Have we not begun to understand where we come from and our position in the world? Should that not be enough reason to daily remember Odin and Saga drinking gladness from cups of gold? Yes, something very powerful there. The fifth is Glassheim, and gold bright there stands Valhall, stretching wide, and there does Odin each day choose the men who have fallen in fight. So your efforts to struggle are not going to be in vain. Even if you die in the greatest of efforts, that's not the end. There's something more beyond that. Easy it is to know for him who to Othin comes and behold the hall, its rafters are spears with shields it is roofed, and on its benches are breastplates strewn. Something comfortable and familiar to the warrior. Easy it is to know for him who to Othin comes and beholds the hall, there hangs a wolf by the western door. Not just anybody's going to get in here, and over it an eagle hovers. So these are powerful representations of the wolf and the eagle of really around the world represent powerful totems or philia or spirit animistic shamanic kind of entities, and they stand at the western door. And what is the western door? That's where the sun sets. You know, just get to walk in there at the end of your life. There's a way to get in. That's how you know who Odin comes for. The sixth is Thrymheim, where Thiazi dwelt, the giant of marvelous might. It's interesting that she calls her there. Let me go back up a minute. So the two about Odin and Saga, there's some footnotes here. Sakvabek is the sinking stream of this spot and of Saga, who is said to live there, little is known. So Snorri calls her a distinct goddess, and the name suggests some relation to history or to storytelling. Now, Gladsheim means the place of joy. Odin's home, the greatest and most beautiful hall in the world, Valhall, Hall of the Slain. Valhall is not the only hall whither the slain heroes are brought by the Valkyries, but it's also a favorite home of Odin, the place of joy. It's interesting that such a thing would, for the afterlife, would be called that. Probably the closest real thing that we have to be saying the joy of heaven or the pearly gates or what the fuck ever we have Gladsheim, the place of joy. And indeed, Freya has also hers. Holy shit, I completely forgot what it is. What is it, Jason?
Wolfganger?
Is that it? She has
Always.
that. She has that. And she also has.
Wolfganger.
Okay, yeah, right. And she also has the Hill of Healing for women. So when you look at the at the end of the tale, when we're talking about shit. Anyway, she has a place for men as well as a place for women, the Hill of Healing, and that was in. I wrote the book about it on The Courage to Love, the study of that. Anyway, so it's for more than just men. There's also an opportunity for women, and Freya represents that very powerfully in her Hill of Healing and her ability to love and the things she's done. But the giant, 6 is Thryimheim, where Thiazi dwelt, the giant of marvelous might. Now Skathi abides, the god's fair bride, in the home that her father had. Now, the giant of marvelous might is an interesting term for someone that so many people hold in high regard. It's a clear indication of an individual. The giant of marvelous might. Well, in fact, it was so marvelous that she was granted several gifts. Her father's eyes or stars. She has her father's castle. She got to laugh at Loki, and she got to pick a husband. And I've used the analogy many times. Even women today will pick a mate based on one aspect of their being. She picked the one who had the prettiest feet, thinking surely this must be Balder. Obviously, Balder's got some hooves because she didn't pick him, but Njord does. All that soft sand beach boy bullshit. Yeah, real pretty feet. She picked him, and it just. So she is an individual who, through her grief and her ability to really confront the divine as to why this kind of pain was in her life, and to come out on top, understanding the gifts that she had been given and the opportunities that she'd been given, she became something more as well. It's like that with much of life. When girls are picking a dude based on his wallet or some other fucking idea, it's going to go bad for him. But Skathi is that example of how to overcome that. So now he's showing Agnar the ideas of a positive afterlife, but he's also showing him, this giant of marvelous might, how to grow, how to deal with the struggle. The 7th is Breakbulk. Balder has there a dwelling for him, dwelling set. In the land I know that lies so fair, and from evil fate is free. This is the son of Odin and Frigg, Balder and Nanna. And he has this beautiful hall that is free from evil. There's a whole world of mythology that surrounds the idea of Balder and Nanna and their journey. There's a spark that I think kind of represents some of what I'm talking about when you make that deeper connection to the soul and the emergence of high mythological thought. Balder kind of does that for many people in Asatru. Balder and Nanna, the power of love. Her heart burst as he lay on his funeral pyre, and they began a journey together in a new world. What a powerfully romantic ideal that lends itself to the most positive aspects of love in an individual or a couple's life. Who could not wish for something like that? How do we get that? Well, we got to kind of study a little bit deeper. We have to look at what Skathi did, because she's mentioned before him, she confronted the gods themselves about the pain in her life. She began to look at, if you want to get technical about it, she took a look inside. I can't deal with this pain. I'm going to confront the divine about it. How do I handle this? And she was taken care of. It's the same thing with us. We don't have to go around being grateful all the fucking time. We may not understand what's going on. Give it a minute. Confront the divine. See what comes of it. Allow yourself to express your own divinity, for only the divine can truly recognize and worship the divine. And there's a little bit of that in each of us. And Himmelbjorg is the eighth, and Heimdall there over men holds sway, it is said. So we started with Thor, who is the warder of men, and we're coming down here to Heimdall, who is the warder of heaven. He is the guardsman that grants entrance and exit out of Asgard. He watches over the Rainbow Bridge. Over men holds sway. He contends with Loki in Ragnarok, and they slay each other. So this individual who watches over the Rainbow Bridge and represents the guardian of the higher mythological ideas that Asgard is supposed to represent within our own life, contends with and slays the ego that so much prevents us from being able to access that divine realm. In his well-built house does the warder of heaven the good mead gladly drink. He's got it good, can't deny that. The ninth is Folkvang, where Freya decrees who shall have seats in the hall. Half the dead each day does she choose, and half does Odin have. So people want to say, is she an aspect of Frigga? But I would contend and furthermore submit to you that perhaps she is more like an aspect of hell. Is she the bright, shining aspect of that? What more loving act can we have than when Nana's heart bursts with grief and she joins her husband on a funeral pyre? What a truly powerful thing to witness. What a truly powerful thing to feel. Can we so carelessly say, well, I don't really understand everything about her, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call her an aspect of Frigga. We have to be more clear and more honest with ourselves and clear with our own thoughts about these things. To simply give up and make it easy, well, that's just, and kind of boil it all down to one, that's a dangerous and slippery slope that leads us to one universal God. And that's not what we're going for here. Whether we're right or wrong or indifferent is irrelevant. What we're looking for here are ideas that may separate in our mind to give us a clear and powerful path where to create a land where the fewest evil resides in our own lives. If our minds evolved over millennia with that clearly delineated idea of each God represents something in our life, and we want to disregard that and boil it down to one thing, we're creating confusion because we're melding all of that together to create a chaotic idea in the hopes that somebody will take care of us. And that's not going to work. We see the mess that is created around the world. 10th is Glitnir. Its pillars are gold, and its roof with silver is set. There most of the days does Forseti dwell, and sets all strife at end. And that's my personal thing. That's my own little ego boosting idea, because I do have one. It's magnificent. Are you over there listening? Yes. So everybody talks about, I'm gonna go to jail and I'm gonna make an offering to Tyr. Look, you dumb shit. Tyr sacrificed his wool for the good of the people around him. He is not a God of justice. It says real clear. He is not known as a reconciler of men. You want to go in front of the judge, you need to be talking to Forseti. He sets all strife at end. He puts to sleep all suits. He is the God of justice. He's going to do what's right. Tyr's going to make you suffer. Look, if I had to give up a hand for these bunch of bastards, you're going to have to deal with it too. I mean, if that's what you want, go for it. I ain't going to hold you back. I'm just telling you, you're going to have to, you better get your mind right with what you're dealing with. Forseti is this God of justice. So we have the idea of Freya coming in. We have the warder of heaven. We have the idea of love and abundance coming in. The half of the dead go to this other beautiful place. Then we have this idea that there's justice in the world. And it begins. So all of these things are representing landmarks whereby a man might stake out the boundaries to keep the chaos of his own thoughts at bay, so he might maneuver in a world where he might be able to create a mindset he can use to succeed. The 11th is Noatan. There has Njorth for himself a dwelling set. The sinless ruler of men there sits in his temple timbered high. Njorth is an amazing deity, a Vannic deity. He is the father of Frey and Frey. He is literally the father of the abundance of the world. One more thing about Forseti. what we need to look at there is that that is the grandson of Odin and Frigg. And he represents justice in the world. Now, what does justice in the world do? It allows men to operate in a society where they might be free and follow their own spiritual path. This is a very important concept. It's something we have drifted away from as we have been expecting somebody else to take care of it for us. One nation under God and all that bullshit. Should have been saying Forseti, blah, blah, blah. Forseti was an influence to Thomas Jefferson when he wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. The Anglo-Saxon chieftains of old were very influential in Thomas Jefferson during his days at Oxford before he came back and wrote the Declaration of Independence. Those ideas of freedom and of the individual freedom of a man, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those came from our ancestors, not from the Roman fucking Republic or the Greeks, from our ancestors. And they found their way into our Declaration of Independence, Constitution and Bill of Rights written by Thomas Jefferson. Something we should always remember. Forseti has a hand in that. We have an obligation as members of this society to stand up and do right so we might represent some of the best of what he offers here in a framework that we might work in. Now, Njorth, this is the father of Frey and Freya, literally the father of the twins that represent abundance and a masculine and feminist energy across the globe, across our people, across all spiritual mindsets, right? Frey and Forseti, love and abundance. They both ride a boar. The boar is foundational in the ability for men to begin planting and cultivating, watching them root up the ground and watching things grow out of it later on. Who knows how old that idea was, but you have to remember that it wasn't so long ago that people didn't understand that if you have sex with somebody, that a baby is going to come out. At that time, Freya's invocation to provide abundance resulted in new life and love. So there's something we need to tap into very primally about what Njord really offers. It says he controls fire and water. That means he is every bit as powerful as Odin. Odin is the grandson, much as Forseti is a grandson. So it builds all on itself. I'll probably get into it. I'll probably write a book about it. It'd be good. Filled with can't say growing trees, and high standing grass is Vithar's land. This land isn't mentioned elsewhere. This is Vidar. This is the one that avenged Odin's father. And this is the only place that it's mentioned. But it says it's filled with growing trees and high standing grass is Vithar's land. But there did the sun from his steed leap down when his father he fain would avenge. This is the love of our fathers. This is the effort. We might be living in a good place. We might have growing trees and high standing grass on our property. It's like shitting in tall cotton. That's when you got a cotton crop that's so good you ain't got to bend over to wipe your ass, just walk through the field. Vidar represents that success in life. When his father falls, all bets are off. The savage comes out, I will avenge my father. And I hope that our country isn't kind of going towards that, but it seems like it's damn near wanting to. And Andromir cooks Savrimnir's seething flesh, the best of food, but few men know on what fare the warriors feast. Now, this is the pig. This is the bacon they serve in Valhalla, and that's the name of the cook. Freki and Gary does here father feed, the far-famed fighter of old, but on wine alone does the weapon-decked god Odin live forever. Now, hopefully there's not a bunch of alcoholics that read that and try it, because it ain't going to work. Over Mythgard, Hugin and Munin, memory and thought, both each day set forth to fly. For Hugin, I fear lest he come home not, but for Munin, my care is more. So for thought, it would be hard for him not to come home, but to lose my memory, my care is more. He doesn't want to forget any of this stuff. That line right there, you have the framework of the locations and what each of these gods represents to create a path for yourself in this world. But if you lose your memory of those as it seems like we have the collective unconscious of the human mind, our care should be more, because we have forgotten. We have forgotten so much of what it means to be like these people. Fortunately, we live in a land that allows us to explore what that might truly mean. What greatness might emerge from it, who knows? But if we follow it true, I imagine it'll be something magnificent. Probably not anything we can even begin to imagine. Loud roars thund, and Thothfitnir's fish joyously fares in the flood. Hard does it seem to the host of the slain to wade the torrent wild. There Valgrind stands at the sacred gate, and behind are the holy doors. Old is the gate, but few there are who can tell how tightly it is locked. Thund means the swollen or the roaring, the river surrounding Valhall. Like I said, you ain't just gonna get in there. Thothfitnir's fish, presumably the sun, which was caught by the wolf Skjall. Thothfir meaning the mighty wolf. Okay, so they're talking a little bit about the end of the world here. Valgrind is the death gate, the outer gate of Valhall. And so he's telling him about Valhalla. He's telling him about what comes next. And we're going to approach it from the idea of the end of all things. Then I want to mention a couple of things about our own lives. 500 doors and 40 there are, I ween, on Valhall's walls. 800 fighters through one door fair. When to war with the wolf they go. 500 rooms and 40 there are, I ween, in Bilskirnir built. Of all the homes whose roofs I beheld, my sons the greatest me seen. So there's something, these halls, when you have 540 doors and 800 fighters coming out of each, I think that's 432,000. And I'm almost certain that somewhere along the way in India, the time frame for a cycle of an age is 4,320,000. Am I right there, Anna? Am I right?
We were going to do the math real quick.
Oh, okay. Anyway, there's where the math begins to emerge. Could be wrong, but I don't think so. Hythrun is the goat who stands by Herefather's hall, and the branches of Lareth she bites. And this is the goat that eats in the tree. The pitcher she fills with fair, clear mead never fails the forming drink. This is, for some reason, it's a goat. And from her udder, the mead that fills Valhall is the foundation of most rivers. She gnaws on Yggdrasil. Eikthirnir is the hart who stands by Herefather's hall, and the branches of Lareth he bites. Lareth is Yggdrasil. And from his horns a stream into Vergelmir drops. Thence all the rivers run. So it's the dew from a hart's horn. I can't read it, is it?
432,000.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that 432,000 shows up again and again. Matter of fact, if you look at the Sumerian text and their tale of the flood, and then add up the ages of all the people in Genesis, they come out to the same kind of number, I believe. It's repeated again and again. An emergence of high spiritual thought across, irrespective of time. The Sumerian text of the Great Flood is exactly the same as Genesis, with the only difference are the names. Anyway, so he's gone through and represented the ideas. Now he's going through and talking about the challenges that face this tree of life. So why would we want to know that? Why would we want to understand what challenges this world tree, the axis mundi of who we are, our ability to move up and down spiritually, our thought process? Why would that be fucking important? Because we have to understand that even though we have a clear representation and delineation of the thought processes that might motivate us to be honest and courageous and forthright in our actions, we still need to understand there's going to be challenges. There are going to be things that are a part of the world we live in that we may not necessarily be able to surmount of our own accord. We simply have to keep moving forward. Don't lose hope. And these are the kind of things that we need to be aware of. Shit happens. You can't just fall apart. That tree's being eaten by a goat, it's being eaten by four harts. There's a fucking mean ass squirrel running up and down it. There's a dragon gnawing at the roots. There's an eagle in the top with a hawk on his nose because the hawk is in the angles. Got all kinds of things going on with it, and yet it still supports us all. If our thought process is rooted powerfully enough because we have a memory, well, what could we withstand in life? What might we be able to endure? Doesn't mean we won't shake. It doesn't mean we won't flounder. It doesn't mean we won't have doubt. It does mean we have what it takes to make it. And that's the thing we got to be paying attention to. So this lines 27 and, well, these are the names of the rivers. And they're not really mentioned anywhere else, and I'm not going to read them right here. But there's a bunch of them that flow from this hart's horn. And they all mean something, they all stand for something, but this is the only place they're mentioned. And it's a real possibility that they're an interpolation from another poem that doesn't have anything to do with this. But as I said, there's going to be rivers to cross. There's going to be challenges. Sometimes the water might be neck deep, sometimes it might just be over the ankles. But at that sinking stream where Saga and Othin meet each day, they share cups in gladness and memory of the people that their ancestors and the people they love. All of those rivers represent a challenge in life. All of those rivers are things we have to cross. It could be drug addiction, divorce, it could be the loss of a child, it could be the loss of a parent, it could be any number of things that are a part of living life. At some point, you'll have to bear up under the load. Your children might disappoint you, your parents might disappoint you might disappoint yourself. Cross it anyway. And just like Thor grabbing the rowan tree, there's a way to get across. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. But the ones that men don't cross, and hence they fall to hell. Now, is that a bad thing that they fall to hell? No. See, it's only at the bottom of life where you get that moment of clarity that allows you to form a cognitive thought process to try again. Now, in the depths of addiction, that thought might get hijacked with, well, I'm going to get high one more time. If you're drunk, it might show up as, well, I'm going to have one more drink. And there's all kinds of bullshit that emerges from that. They are going to fall to hell. Hell is the goddess that rules over Helheim, and more importantly, Niflheim, deep down misty hell. All of the ancestors that have passed on before are there. So she has access to the entire body of knowledge of all of these people who have lived life, all of their mistakes, all of their victories, all of their successes, loves, failures. How else should we best learn than through pain? It seems to be how we're conditioned to do it, to hurt, to understand what it means to love. This is one of those duality kind of things, but it's not a bad thing to go down. It's not a bad thing to fail. You're going to learn some of your greatest lessons at the bottom. It's a fucking sin not to get up. With everything we've been given, with all of the information, the mythological information we've just been given from Othin, it's bad not to get up one more time and try it again, no matter how badly it sucks. Try one more time. Here's a couple more rivers. Cormt and Ormt and the Kurlogs twain shall Thor each day wade through. Thor's such a big dude, he can't just walk across the Rainbow Bridge. He's got to wade 4 rivers to get to the court where the gods hold council. When dooms to give, he forth shall go to the ash tree Yggdrasil, for heaven's bridge burns all in flame and the sacred waters seethe. Glath and Giller, Glare and Skithbrenir, Silfentop and Sinir, Gizel and Falhofnir, Gultop and Lefedi. On these steeds the gods shall go, when dooms to give each day they ride. So those are the names of the horses the gods ride. And it's important to remember them too, because if you can understand how these clearly delineated ideas arrive at your doorstep on what the name might bring to you, that kind of is important. So Giller means golden, Glear is shining, Skithbrenir is swift going, Silfentop is silver topped, Sinir is sinewy, Gisel kind of suggests it means gleaming. Falhofnir is hollow hoofed. Gultop is gold topped. This horse belonged to Heimdall. And it is noteworthy that gold was one of the attributes of Heimdall's belonging because his teeth were of gold. He was also called Gold Tooth. Lettfeti means light feet. Odin's 8-footed horse, Sleipnir, is not mentioned in the list. So all these gods and the ideas they represent and how they show up and appear in our lives and blah, 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 they all ride a horse. This is Ehwaz. This is the teamwork. And when the third all-powerful female Jotun, the horse thief, Hrothiof, entered Asgard's golden age, she interrupted the ability of these divine beings to work and travel about on these very steeds. And this is what Odin was trying to get rid of when he burned Gullveig, the lover of gold, and Hyth, the bewitcher of men's minds. A horse thief is a terrible thing in a golden age when all these gods are committed to riding these fine steeds to go about the world on their various errands, such as the warder of men and the warder of heaven and the progenitors of abundance and love. A horse thief would be a very dangerous thing to have in your city, wouldn't it? I'd probably try to get rid of her too. Then we talk about the roots. 3 roots there are that three ways run neath the ash tree Yggdrasil. Neath the first lives Hel, right? Neath the second, the frost giants, and neath the last are the lands of men. So there are 3 states of being there. One is the afterlife. One is the uninspired, ego-driven type of life you see of a Wall Street hustler or a selfish individual. And the next one is the land of men. These are the individuals that may have come out of that ego-driven mindset to become something more. But each one of them are important. They are stages of existence of the energies of who we are, and they all support the axis mundi of what we might become. And that's a fucking powerful thought, and it's a hell of a thing to think of that our ancestors had some kind of understanding of that. Ratatosk is the squirrel who there shall run on the ash tree Yggdrasil. There's that bastard. And above the words of the eagle he bears and tells them to Nithog beneath. So he's running back and forth, stirring up shit between the high-minded eagle and the basest kind of savage of Nithog who gnaws upon the men's souls. And there are 3 types of crimes that men do. One is the deceiver of men's wives, treacherous men, and murderers. So that kind of covers it right there. They're going to be gnawed upon by dragons. We don't forgive that shit. 4 hearts there are that the highest twigs nibble with necks bent back. Dane and Dvalin, Dunir and Dirathor. More serpents there are beneath the ash than an unwise ape would think. Now that right there, that word ape, everybody gets all butthurt about that because it seems to say they understood Darwin's theory of evolution when they wrote this. Well, it was transcribed probably 4 or 5 times. Ape was a term that was popular at that time. Going in Moen, Grafitnir's son, Grabik and Grafvoluth, Ofnir and Svafnir shall ever, methinks, gnaw at the twigs of the tree. Those are the names of some of those serpents. Those serpents, those are dragons. And like a heroin addict or an opium addict understands the term chasing the dragon, it's the same principle here. So once again, we have a high mythological thought, chasing the dragon of the opium dens and the dragons that gnaw upon a man's soul. Somehow they've emerged to represent something that literally chews on a man's very heart. Drug addiction does that like few things ever will. Yggdrasil's ash, great evil suffers, far more than men do know. And yet, the most amazing thing about a tree is that no matter what is going on in the world around it, whether it's got a bear scratching its ass on it, whether it's got some dickhead carving a heart on it because he loves some girl, whether somebody's trimming it up for a power line so California doesn't catch on fire again. It doesn't really matter what's going on around that tree. It knows one thing. It knows to grow. It knows to continue putting all of its effort into growing. And if we grab a hold of even the simplest ideas of what these gods represent in our lives or what they represent of any kind of meaning, what is our obligation? No matter the hardships of life, but to focus on those things and become something more. So this is the great gift that Odin has given Agnar. Well, imagine how we might succeed if we could also cultivate a mindset that allow us to understand that. Yeah, it's just going to happen. I got all these DATs. I bet I can do it. Find some people to say, why not? And stick with them and go do it. I think I'm going to stop right there on the rim this morning. I think I made my point. Any questions? Well, it's 9 o'clock. Tomorrow I got to start a new job. I'm going to go in there and grab it by the nose and whip its ass. Fucking early in the morning, fucking people. All right. If anybody didn't have, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I was glad to see everybody. If not,
Man.
good to see you too, man.
Brother.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Renee. Where's the spice, honey?
California is still dragging their damn heels. They better get it here next week.
Keep trying, babe. Keep trying.
Thank you.
Okay. With that in mind, it's 2021. Let's go out there and see if we can use that to be what we're supposed to become. Because I got to tell you, looking at the world today, they need us. And they need us firing on all the cylinders. Arrogant, but it's true. All right, guys. I appreciate everyone y'all joining in today. Have a wonderful